Welcome to Perspective. I'm your host, Robyne. Thank you for spending a wee bit of time with me today. Every day we're surrounded by advice, more podcasts, more books, more headlines, more people telling us what to think, what to do, and how to live. I don't think we need more information. I think we need a wee bit of perspective. And that is what this podcast is all about. Each week we'll slow down long enough together to look at things that matter most through a different lens. We'll explore the science, the stories, and the small shifts that help us navigate every part of our life. My hope is simple. Every episode offers one just-in-time perspective, because sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. And I'm just so glad that you are here. Let's get started. Welcome to Perspective. Now, there's many different ways that I thought about kicking off this season. I guess you could say this is season 3. This is episode 100 of me doing a solo podcast. Now, the first 50 episodes, I called it Resiliency Redefined, and really laid down the foundation and the frameworks that I use in my work on resiliency, supporting teams and groups and organizations all across North America. Now, after doing 50 episodes of that, I got really curious about thinking about our habits, because that was something that kept coming to the forefront. So I explored this idea with the team about thinking about our day by design or life by design based on our habits, because the big idea that those 51 to 99 episodes really held on to was this anchored belief that our habits make up the quality of our life. That's just the truth. We see that the habits make up the quality of somebody's experience, their day, their mood, their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors. So we played around, and I had the opportunity to invite people into those conversations. So I was so excited to be able to share with you the episode with me talking to Commander Mark Devine. Let's be real, speaking and interviewing a Navy SEAL is a trip. I also had the chance to connect with an NFL referee, with a spiritualist. I got to talk to business people, so many different people from many different walks of life and lived experience about the habits and the routines and just their story, which was so exciting. And I was so appreciative of everyone that joined me for those interviews. So as I said, that was episode 51 to 99, and I loved it. And okay, spoiler alert, I will still continue to interview other people as well, because I love hearing the stories and I love being able to connect with people and then bringing those conversations to you. Now, when I heard that the 100th episode was on the horizon, like I tend to do, I wanted to explore, what's next? Where do I want to put my energy, my focus? What do I want to put the resources behind that I believe could be useful for you? Because that's ultimately my goal with the work that I do, is I want to be of service and I ultimately want to be useful. So I thought, what could be useful for you as we think about season 3? And apparently I like to put 50 episodes into a season. Good golly, that is excessive. But anyway, for the next little while, where would we like to focus? What do we want to be thinking about, talking about, and exploring together? Now, one of the things that I love about my journey as an entrepreneur and as a founder, and doing my work outside of the traditional sense of at one point, the academy or of a business, when you're in the driver's seat, you get to kind of steer, which I'm a fan of. But I like steering based on what people let me know that could be helpful right now. So as we go into this next season or this next iteration or evolution of the work that I'm presenting here in the form of a podcast, what I got super excited to explore and what I heard from people was so helpful was this idea about perspective. That I was so humbled when people shared with me that, Robyne, you said this thing once and it changed my perspective. Or some folks will come up to me afterwards and said, oh my gosh, I heard you speak years ago and I remember this thing that you said, and that one thing made this shift. oh my goodness, knowing that the work and me sharing my work, other people's work with people, and it lands just at the right time when people need to hear it the most. And it feels like this sense of like, that's it. Or maybe it's a sense of relief or, oh gosh, that's what I needed to know, exactly when I needed to hear it. Those are some of my favorite moments, especially as an educator, knowing that I can like deliver something exactly when you need to hear it most. And it like comes through crystal clear. And it's almost as if you have this moment where you're like, thank you, universe. Thank you, divine. Thank you, God. I needed that. And that's exactly what I want to be able to do here with this episode and the future episodes while we're in this season, all around perspective. Now, what's so interesting about perspective is we don't know what we don't know. Now, there's an interesting psychology concept that we talk about, and this has come in so handy. I remember when I first learned it, I thought this should be in like required learning for everyone. And it's called the conscious competency ladder. Okay, so this is a psychology tool that's called the conscious competency ladder. Now, the first rung of the ladder or base of the ladder is unconsciously incompetent. They don't even know that they don't know. Okay, that's unconsciously incompetent. They don't even know that they don't know. The next one is consciously incompetent. They at least know that they don't know. And like, this isn't a hierarchy of like better, better, best, or good, better, best. This is literally how people understand information. You don't know what you don't know. So it's not that like unconsciously incompetent. It doesn't sound like a compliment. It's not really meant to be a compliment, but it's also not meant to be a diss because like you don't know what you don't know, just is the reality. Okay, bear with me. So then you get to a point as you learn, as you grow, that you start to like realize, damn, I don't know this. Okay, so now you're aware that you don't know it. The third step is conscious competence. So like we know. Okay, so before we like knew we didn't know, now we're on step 3 of this ladder and we're like, okay, I know this. And step 4 is unconsciously competent. Like this is just mastery. It's like autopilot. Like you don't even have to think about it anymore. Like this is just what you know to be true. All this to be said, when I think about the idea of perspective, to me, it's this like amazing realization that it's like, I don't have to feel bad that I didn't know it or I didn't see the world that way before, or maybe I wasn't ready to see or hear or understand it. But all of a sudden, there's been some opening, something has unfolded, something has changed that now allows me to take in more information or to see something from a new perspective. Now, if we think about the amazing quote attributed to Dr. Maya Angelou, the idea is that when you know better, you do better. It ties into this around our perspective. So as our perspective grows, which we know our perspective grows in relation to our lived experiences, the more experiences we've had, the more opportunities for learning, for unlearning, for growth, for mastery, as all of this unfolds, our perspective is going to broaden. Now, when you talk to somebody who, let's say they hold a very rigid view about something, chances are that they have a lot of blind spots, that they might be unconsciously incompetent about this. Or perhaps maybe you've talked to somebody and all of a sudden you realize, wow, this person is underskilled to be able to have the conversation that I want to be able to have with them today. Now, again, this isn't about casting judgment on others. It has a wee bit to do about managing our expectations, but being able to hold perspective so that way we don't get like completely like marinating in the misery, for example, if things are so out of our control, or perhaps we don't get so tangled up in all of the friction and all the tension and everything feels so personal. It allows us just to take a step back and perhaps see the bigger picture. Now, something that we know from psychology that I talked about in my second book about stress and stressing wisely is that when our nervous system is under threat or is experiencing those reflexes of fight, flight, freezing, and fawning, the 4 Fs, when we're in that position, the aperture in which we see the world, gosh, it is so narrow. It is so narrow when we are in a heightened state. It's like one of those things like you can't even see what's going on around you. You're like focused so tightly on the problem. Or the idea that you're like squeezing these moments and it's just like they're suffocating you. Or maybe it's not that extreme. Maybe it's just that you're in this place where you're in that heightened state and everything just feels like a chore. Like everything just feels like work and you're exhausted because the nervous system is so activated. And when we have the opportunity for our nervous system to not just regulate, but actually be restored, to experience rest, what happens is the aperture in which we see the world will start to broaden. It will start to expand. We'll have this spaciousness to be able to, for example, hold dual truths, that two things can actually be true at the same time. It will allow us to reflect on our mistakes, but also reflect on our wins. So I'll give you just a few like rapid fire perspective shifts that I hear from people that landed with them who I've worked with recently. So just that one I shared with you, this idea of a manager realizing that the person they were talking to was actually underskilled, that this wasn't about underperforming. It was like the person was actually underskilled, that they didn't have the skills to be able to do the thing that the manager was looking for. And all of a sudden, imagine if you're trying to have this conversation and you think it's going to be a difficult conversation because this person is hard to get along with. But all of a sudden you realize, wow, this person isn't hard to get along with. This person doesn't actually know what I'm asking. They don't have the skills to do the thing that I'm asking. Now, all of a sudden, as the manager, as that leader, I'm going to probably likely have a shift where instead of being like, oh, this person's difficult, it's like, no, it's my job to show you. It's my job to share, to mentor, to educate, to lead. And how I show up for a meeting when I'm holding the perspective that is my job to help them connect the dots because they're not connecting them by themselves, all of a sudden my mood shifts. All of a sudden my approach, even energetically, how I show up to that conversation, it's going to look different. And that's not woo, it is science. We see that energy shifts and moves in how we operate, how we show up for conversations. Another perspective shift. I talked to a woman recently and we talked about the difference between your family and your relatives. We have a lot of relatives, right? There are a lot of people that we are in relation with, that we are literally blood relatives with, or by marriage, by organization. And Apollo likes to say good morning, hello to you all. Like we have a lot of relatives, and relatives are just like we have a shared family tree or a shared origin story or shared experiences. But family, oh my gosh, family are the ones that you call them at 3 a.m. and they're going to show up. Now, this idea that we might want people who we are biologically related to be our go-to people who like know us so well and we feel unconditionally accepted and loved and celebrated and cherished. We might want our biological family to be those people for us, but you might have experienced a lifetime of those people letting you down. And what happens is that we can't change someone. You cannot change another person's behavior. We can put enormous amounts of resources trying to change somebody else. But the reality is you cannot change another person's behavior. So let's say you've invested years trying to get your family to show up for you in a meaningful way of how you need to be loved and how you need to be supported. And they're just not doing it. They're not getting it. It's a lot easier to hold space to recognize, okay, they're relegated to a relative. Now, I will be respectful. I will be civil. This isn't about like estranging ourselves from them. It's literally about managing my expectations that you aren't going to be the soft place to catch me when I fall, or you might not be the person that shows up. And that's okay. You're doing the best that you can with the skills and the tools and the gifts that you have. But it's okay for me to recognize that you won't be that in my life. Now, I could love you. Maybe I'm loving you a wee bit from afar, but when I relegate you to relative, it just like manages my expectations of what that relationship looks like. Now, my hope for you, my gentle invitation is like, I still want you to, like connect with the people that matter most to you, of course. But being able to look at that person and realize, okay, they're not skilled enough to be able to show up for me how I need them to be. And again, it's around managing our expectations relative to family. That's a perspective shift. Now, gentle invitation, I wouldn't let anyone in your family know that they've been relegated to relative. That probably will make a family dinner a wee bit awkward, but it'll also help it maybe be a wee bit more manageable for you to navigate. Okay, another perspective shift recently that was really impactful for a person I was working with was the idea that if they wanted to, they would. Simple as that. If you're wondering, why haven't they called? Why aren't they reaching out? If they wanted to, they would. Now, people are busy. I get that. And there's lots of competing demands and moving parts. All of the things can be true. And if they wanted to, they would. It's as simple as that. Like there are very, very few exceptions to when somebody couldn't connect if they actually wanted to. There are ways that we are able to connect. The reality is we're more connected now than we've ever been before, despite what the research is showing right now is we are lonelier than we have ever been before. And I think part of that loneliness is the idea, like, of course, we can go on a big realm about social and a rant about social media and all of the wrongs of the technology. But I think this is what makes the isolation and the loneliness worse, is that people could reach out. You might see that person posting on social media, but they haven't bothered to call you back or send you a text message, right? So I think that actually exacerbates the issue, is the fact that there are so many ways you could reach out to someone if they wanted to. So when I was speaking to this woman, me sharing the fact that like if they wanted to, they would. And no response in itself is a response. Now, I appreciate that doesn't mean it lands better. That doesn't mean it feels better. But at least we can start now managing the emotion around that versus getting ourselves caught up into trying to fill in the blanks, trying to connect dots that we don't have enough information to be able to tie together. And that gentle reminder, and this is one of my favorite perspective shifts that I like to spend time with, is recognizing that there's no such thing as perfect knowledge. There's no such thing as perfect information. And so often we operate waiting for like all of the right answers or the right time. The reality is perfect information is connected only to this idea of chess. And as I shared before on the podcast, like, gosh, we are not playing chess, people. We are literally at best playing poker, where we have pieces and parts of information, but we'll never have the full story. And that's okay. You can still have a pretty mean game of poker without having all of the pieces of information. And you know what? You could still be really successful without having all of the control and all of the pieces of information if you figure out some of the basic rules and some strategy or some practices or routines or habits that set you up for success. So recognizing that we're playing poker, not chess, is a perspective. Okay, so this is some of the perspectives I've been hearing lately. And one of the things that I do want to be able to bring to this podcast and this iteration is when I come across refreshing perspectives or new perspectives that land for me, I want to share them with you. And the one that I recently heard about, oh my goodness. So I heard it before, but I hadn't really listened to it the way I needed to, was this talk from Dr. Arthur Brooks. Now, you might know Dr. Arthur Brooks. He is at Harvard, sociologist. He also writes, I believe, as a columnist for The Atlantic. He was talking about happiness, and this was Oh my gosh. It was literally, I was driving in the car, I was listening to it, and I had a moment where I'm like, now I will never see the world the same again, because I just was gifted this perspective from listening to Dr. Arthur Brooks when he said, if you describe happiness, what is happiness? And if you think about the ways we describe it, it's like, I feel good, or it's like joy or merriment. He said, no, that's just evidence that happiness has been here. Oh, wow. And then he said, what truly is happiness are three phenomena that work interconnectedly. Number one is enjoyment. We enjoy doing the thing. Number two, we feel satisfied, that this was a satisfying experience. And number three, there is meaning. There is meaning to what we are doing. And in that moment, hearing Dr. Brooks share his definition of happiness, it gave me just this massive breakthrough in understanding when people say to me, hey, Robyne, how do I get happier? And I often think about ways I can support them. All of a sudden, now I had this new perspective where it was like, okay, let's think about some of these behaviors and habits that you do on a daily, and finding enjoyment, finding it satisfying, and it having meaning is what's going to make you have this essence of happiness. I thought that was so cool. Now, interestingly, he also shared that there are three components that contribute to happiness as well. And he talked about, this is fascinating, 50% of our happiness, genetic. What the F? 50% of a person's ability to experience happiness is connected to their genetics. 25% is circumstances. And 25%, the rest of it, are the habits that somebody does. Okay, my mind is now officially blown. I loved his take on this. And what I wanted to bring to you today was just thinking about, let's take this idea that Dr. Brooks talks about happiness, three parts. So it's enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. And then we think about the other three components of a person that allow them to experience. And we have 50% genetics, 25% circumstances, 25% habits. Now, here's a really powerful thing. Something we know as a behaviorist, and as I know as a behaviorist, if you look at those genetics, there are habits that you can do that can unlock or not activate some of our genetic predisposition. Kind of cool. Well, that's what I have for you today. I know I came a lot at you like a fire hose around perspective and ideas in the shift, but I will pick this up on our next episode, and I will share with you exactly what habits can suppress and activate some of those genetic predispositions. So I hope I've shifted your perspective ever so slightly, and join me for the next episode when I dive deeper into how you can activate or not those 50% of our genetics as it relates to happiness. Okay. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Perspective. It means the world to me that you spent time listening to this idea, these conversations. Now, if you have found something useful or helpful, please share it with someone else. Something that I know it means the world to me to know when something has landed and then you pay it forward. Another way you can support the podcast is to rate and review this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting again very soon.